Nobody told this thing it was an RV. Look at it, that silhouette, that deep obsidian finish, those continuous light signatures wrapping the entire roofline like something straight out of a private aviation hangar. This doesn't look like a vehicle someone lives in, it looks like a vehicle someone arrives in. Now, before we go any further, I want to be upfront about something, and I'll say it the way I always do on this channel. What you're looking at is an AI-generated concept design. No factory built it, no brand commissioned it, no dealership will ever stock it. It's pure imagination, rendered into something that looks disturbingly close to real. And honestly, that's exactly what makes it worth an entire video. Because when a designer has zero real-world constraints, zero budget negotiations, zero engineering sign-off meetings, this is what comes out. We're doing a full analysis today. I'm taking you around the exterior panel by panel, constructing the interior based on what these proportions tell us, breaking down the powertrain logic, and at the very end, I'll tell you the single design decision on this concept that I think is genuinely ahead of anything I've seen on a production vehicle. Stay with me because there's something happening at that roofline that most people are going to scroll right past. And once I point it out, you won't be able to unsee it. Let's start at the front. The first thing you're going to notice, and this is not subtle, is that face. There's a massive hexagonal mesh grille sitting center front, flanked by angular LED clusters that cut upward like they're mid-motion. Even standing still, this thing looks like it's already doing 90 on an Autobahn. That's intentional. The front face of any vehicle is its handshake, and this one doesn't shake hands, it nods from across the room. Now look at where those LED signatures point. They're not just decorative, they're oriented to draw your eye upward, toward the roofline, and that roofline is doing something remarkable. That continuous light strip running the full length of the vehicle from nose to tail isn't a styling gimmick. In a real-world build scenario, that kind of integrated lighting architecture serves multiple functions. It makes the vehicle visible from an enormous distance in all weather conditions, and it creates a sense of continuity that makes something this large feel intentional rather than bulky. Big things can feel elegant. This proves it. The paint. Let's talk about the paint because I don't want to rush past it. This is a deep, almost wet-look graphite, something between midnight black and a very dark navy, depending on how the light catches it. And the way the light moves across these panels in this render, that's not just a rendering trick. Paint depth like this, in the real world, we're talking about multi-stage process finishes, the kind you find on ultra-luxury sedans and custom coach builders. It communicates seriousness, quiet, expensive seriousness. Now let's move to the side profile, because this is where the proportions get genuinely impressive. The overall stance is low-slung for a vehicle this size. That's not accidental. A lower center of gravity on a long wheelbase platform like this translates directly into handling stability at highway speed. But beyond the engineering logic, what it does visually is dramatic. It hugs the ground. It looks planted. It looks like it belongs on this road, not like it was reluctantly permitted onto it. The glass-to-body ratio on the side is something I keep coming back to. Look at how far that panoramic glass section runs. It's nearly the full length of the habitable zone. In practical terms, think about what that means if you're inside. Morning light isn't coming through a porthole, you're waking up to a wall of landscape. That distinction between a porthole and a panorama is the difference between a vehicle and a home. The roofline now, and this is what I teased earlier. That rounded, swept arc from front to rear isn't just aesthetics. The designer has shaped this roof with what appears to be a continuous compound curve, meaning it starts broad and high at the windshield, then tapers and descends toward the rear in a single fluid movement. In the real world, that geometry actively reduces drag. Air flows over that surface rather than slamming into a blunt rear wall, the way it does on conventional box-shaped motorhomes. For a vehicle this large, that kind of aerodynamic discipline could mean meaningfully better efficiency, and in an electric or hybrid application, efficiency is directly tied to how far you go on a charge. The roof isn't just pretty, the roof is working. The wheel and tire package. Multi-spoke alloys, large diameter, likely in the 22 to 24-inch range based on proportions, finished in gloss black to match the body. The 6-wheel configuration visible here is notable. Dual rear axles on a coach of this length aren't just a style choice, they're an engineering necessity for load distribution, and they signal that the designer was thinking about what this thing would actually carry. Dual axles mean better weight management. Better weight management means the interior can be genuinely heavy with real materials, stone, wood, proper appliances, without compromising the drive. And the lower front fascia, that sculpted chin spoiler and side skirt treatment, these are continuation pieces. They pull the visual mass downward, reinforcing the planted stance while also reducing the amount of turbulent air getting underneath the vehicle. Again, a real aerodynamic function dressed up as design. That's how the best designs work. You don't see the engineering, you feel it. The exterior alone makes this one of the most visually compelling concepts I've put on this channel. But honestly, the exterior is just the invitation. What I think is happening inside is where this concept becomes something entirely different.
Now, we don't have interior renders for this concept, and I know some of you are going to say, well, then how do you analyze it? Here's the thing. Exterior proportions tell you almost everything you need to know about the interior intention. The roofline height, the wheelbase length, the position of the glass sections, the entry door location. These are all exterior clues to an interior story. So what I'm going to do is play design detective. I'll tell you what I think is almost certainly happening inside and why the exterior geometry points there. Let's start with ceiling height. Based on the overall body height relative to the wheel diameter, which we can use as a rough real-world scale reference, this concept appears to be sitting at approximately 3.8 to 4.2 meters in total height. Subtract the chassis and floor structure, typically around 600 to 800 millimeters on a heavy platform, and you're left with a habitable ceiling height that could realistically approach 2 meters or slightly above in a vehicle. Full stand-up height. That sounds like a small thing until you've spent a week crouching in a conventional camper van. Stand-up height is the single most transformative feature in mobile living. Nothing else comes close. Now, the layout logic. The wheelbase on this concept is long. I'd estimate somewhere in the 9 to 11 meter overall body range based on proportions. That gives you meaningful zone separation. What I'd expect to find based on the glass distribution and door positioning is a front to rear flow something like this. Cockpit and lounge zone forward, transitioning into a central kitchen and dining area with sleeping quarters and bathroom pushed to the rear where they benefit most from acoustic separation from the powertrain. The lounge. With that panoramic glass section running almost the full length of the side, the living area in this concept would be flooded with natural light in a way that most mobile homes simply aren't. Imagine a space where you can sit in a proper chair, not a camping chair, a real chair, and look out through glass that goes from roughly knee height up to well above your sightline. Parked on a cliff edge in Iceland, parked beside a lake in Switzerland, parked in the middle of a forest in the Pacific Northwest. The glass doesn't just let light in, it makes the outside part of the room. That's the philosophy. The kitchen. On a platform of this width, I'd estimate around 2.4 to 2.6 meters interior width, you have enough room for a galley kitchen that doesn't feel like a galley kitchen. In a real-world interpretation of this concept, you'd expect induction cooking surfaces, no exposed flame in a sealed vehicle, integrated refrigeration, probably concealed behind cabinetry panels that match the overall trim, and based on the exterior design language, those panels would almost certainly be dark, matte black or very dark wood grain with minimal visible hardware, the kind of kitchen you'd see in a Malibu beach house scaled to fit inside something that can drive. The sleeping quarters. Pushed to the rear, likely slightly elevated above the rear axle housing, which creates a natural platform for a queen or king configuration. The slight elevation isn't just structural convenience. It creates a sight line from the bed to the rear window, if the designer included one, that would be extraordinary. Waking up and looking through a rear window directly at a mountain range, or an ocean, or whatever landscape you decided to park next to last night. That's the dream, isn't it? The bathroom. The honest constraint here, even in this imagined world, is water management. A vehicle this ambitious would almost certainly feature a wet bath configuration with a proper walk-in shower rather than a combo unit. In a real production version of something like this, you'd want onboard water capacity of at least 300 liters for genuine off-grid use, and you'd want a gray water recycling system to extend that capability further. Not impossible, just expensive. The cockpit. And this is where it gets interesting. That wide, deeply raked windshield gives the driver a view that most people associate with aircraft, not road vehicles. In a concept of this sophistication, you'd expect a fully digital instrument cluster, a heads-up display, probably dual large format screens for navigation and vehicle systems monitoring, and based on where design thinking is heading, Level 3 autonomous capability for highway cruising, so the driver can step back into the lounge while the vehicle handles a motorway stretch. Drive when you want to, let it drive when you don't. That's a future that already partially exists. This concept just asks what it looks like when it's done beautifully.
Let's talk about what would actually move this thing. If this concept were ever engineered for reality, and I want to stress that word if, because this is still firmly in conceptual territory, the propulsion architecture would almost certainly be fully electric. Diesel has no place in a vehicle at this price and positioning point in 2025 or beyond. You're looking at customers who want silence. They want the vehicle to arrive at a campsite at midnight without waking anyone up. You don't get that with a diesel engine. Battery capacity. A vehicle of this size and weight, conservatively 15 to 18,000 kilograms loaded, is a serious energy demand. The closest real-world reference points are the emerging class of heavy electric coaches and long-haul trucks, where usable battery packs in the 500 to 700 kilowatt-hour range are starting to appear. For a concept like this, where the battery pack would need to power not just propulsion, but a full luxury interior, climate control, appliances, entertainment, lighting, you're looking at a system in that same neighborhood. Highway range of 300 to 400 kilometers before a charge is a reasonable hypothesis. Not unlimited, but workable with the right charging infrastructure. Now, that roofline. I mentioned it's working aerodynamically, but it should also be working energetically. A surface that large, that curved, that continuously exposed to the sun, in a world where this concept existed, the entire upper surface would logically be a solar skin, not bolted on panels. Integrated photovoltaic cells built directly into the roof material, flexible, curved surface solar technology that's been in development for several years now and is getting genuinely close to viable production applications.
It won't power the drive motors, but it could realistically keep all interior systems running while parked: refrigeration, lighting, climate, connectivity, without drawing from the main propulsion battery at all. That's meaningful off-grid autonomy. Dual electric motors, one per axle on the tandem rear setup, would give this concept genuine all-surface capability. Not off-road in the traditional sense, but unpaved mountain access roads, gravel tracks, loose surfaces, the kind of places where you actually want to park something like this, would be accessible. Torque distribution between axles happens in milliseconds electronically. That's a capability you simply can't match with a conventional drivetrain. And the smart systems. In the world of this concept, the vehicle wouldn't just drive and stop. It would learn climate preferences by time of day, optimal solar charging windows based on location and forecast, predictive route planning that factors in charging stops with your actual travel preferences. The software stack on something like this would be as sophisticated as anything currently shipping in the luxury EV space, because at this level, the vehicle is the experience.
All right, let me tell you what I actually think. What this concept does genuinely well, and I don't say this lightly, is proportional coherence. Most motorhome concepts fall apart somewhere. The wheels are wrong, the roof transition is awkward, the front face doesn't match the rear philosophy. This one holds together. From the nose to the tail, there's a single visual argument being made, and the AI that generated it maintained that argument across every surface. That's hard to do. Even human designers struggle with it on long vehicles. What seems questionable? The lower side skirt treatment, that very smooth, continuous underbody, is beautiful in a render and would be a maintenance nightmare in reality. Road debris, gravel, the kinds of surfaces you want to take a vehicle like this to, they would destroy that finish. A real engineer would push back immediately. But that's also the freedom of a concept. It can be perfect in ways reality doesn't allow. The one detail I find most impressive, it's the roofline light signature, specifically the fact that it runs unbroken, nose to tail, at a consistent height. That single luminous line creates the perception that the vehicle is longer, lower, and more intentional than it actually is. In automotive design, we call this a visual speed line, and the greatest production cars use them to sculpt perception as much as metal. On a motorhome, a vehicle category that has historically accepted looking utilitarian, seeing this applied this confidently is genuinely something. What I'd change? I'd want to see the rear. A concept this strong at the front and sides needs an equally resolved rear face to complete the argument. And on the interior front, I'd push for more visible entry integration. The door in this render is suggested rather than defined. How you enter a space like this matters. The transition from road to living room should be a moment. It should be an event. What it says about where luxury mobility is heading. This is a concept about rejecting compromise. The traditional logic of motorhome design is take a truck, put a box on it, fit as much function as possible into the box. This thing says start with the experience. Start with how it should feel to live in it, to arrive in it, to park it and step outside and look back at it, and then build everything else around that. That's not how most vehicles get made. That's how the best ones do. It's a concept, it's fictional, it's AI generated, and it's still the most visually resolved motorhome concept I've analyzed on this channel. Now, here's the question I want you to answer in the comments. If you could add one real-world feature to a concept like this, something that doesn't exist yet but probably will, what would it be? Drop it below. I read every single one. And if this kind of in-depth concept breakdown is what you come to YouTube for, there's a lot more of it on this channel. Subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it's the most reliable way to make sure the next one lands in your feed.